Hello, everybody, and welcome to. Oh, I think it just started. Okay. Anyway, hello, everyone, and welcome to the Villain Viber podcast. Today, I will be interested. I am so coffee. I'm so sorry. Anyway, today we have the runner-up of season 6 with us, Tristian. Do you want to go ahead and say hello to everybody?
Uh, Hello, it's me, Tristian. I almost won season 6. I should have won season 6. Uh, that's probably something I'll say more on and during the interview. But yeah.
Yes, we have so much to talk about. I can't wait to get into your head and get into your game because I know the way that we saw it from the outside, but I can only imagine living it and experiencing it. And I say that with excitement, but it was really quite a tragedy. So we'll definitely get into that. But
Oh, that's one way to put it.
yeah. Definitely want to talk on how that has impacted your view of orgs, but we'll get into that later on. I want to start with what I ask everybody who I bring on to interview, which is basically just if you can give us a summary of your game, go as detailed as you want, from beginning to end. How was the game? What did you do? What was it like for you?
Okay. So the season kicks off. It's a one world twist. Um, I have to talk to everybody in the cast, no matter whether they're on my tribe or not. So that was fine and dandy. And like the season kicked off, and I was quickly grouped into like a VC alliance, which was, like it was like an actual thing because like the 5 people that were in like VCs like constantly, like that was like an actual thing, and I get people being wary of it. I just like I'm just gonna say this now. I didn't necessarily even want to be in VCs all the time. Like it was annoying. And people are gonna be like, "Oh, you were in part of the VC alliance. You're always in VCs." I didn't want to be. I just, in my head, I see the same people VCing every day, and like I'm just like, man, if I'm not in this VC, I feel like I'm gonna miss out. Like I have to be in this voice call because even though like there was like the VC alliance of myself, Abe, Kat, Quinn, and Dino, there was always other people there, and like in my head, it's just like, yeah, if I'm not in the call, I'm gonna miss out. So that was kind of how I found myself at the start of this season. Um, like it's not necessarily something I wanted to be a part of, but it's just like I don't know. You see people calling every day, and like maybe it's just me, but I was just like, yeah, like something like I don't want to miss out on any like strategy or anything like that. So I just joined out of what I thought was a necessity. As you can see, the VC alliance got obliterated as soon as possible during the first tribal, which was a double joint. Something I'm still not too fairly big on, like to kick off the season, but it is what it is. Um, that was kind of like the beginning of the end in terms of like having power in the game, I guess. Because like I lost 2 allies right away, like right off the gate. Dino and Quinn go home. That shit sucks. We win in immunity, so we don't have to go to tribal council. Bless up. I don't have to go to tribal council. That's amazing. We swap on the tribes. I get tribe I get swap screwed, but I don't actually get out from it. So it's not like if we were to lose immunity, I definitely go home there. Thankfully, my tribe was able to win immunities. Otherwise, I know for sure I would have been out. So, grateful for that because you had 4 original Monokuma and then there was just me. And at this point, like my gameplay is kind of just like trying to remain in good graces of the Monokuma because I had like a sneaking suspicion that like based off of the first tribal council that they were gonna like steamroll. And like that tribal lines were gonna be like the end all be all this season, which I think is really fucking boring, and I still resent the people from the original Monokuma tribe for playing the way they did because I don't know. In my opinion, I don't think it would have been a very fun season to spectate the way it played out. Like maybe there was more going on behind the scenes. I never took the time to read people's confessionals. But enough about all that. We'll go into that more later. Merge happens. Um, gets off to an interesting start. I'm trying to, yeah, the Bloodbath Tribal was first. I wasn't picked for that. I know Cat was picked and was the original target. Then they got switched, and then Jake got out. Jake getting out sucked for sure. Because he's somebody I wanted to work with. Although, I'm not sure how great he felt about me. But I still think we had like a decent relationship at that point. So Jake goes out. You know, that's like blow number one. I believe Cat. Correct me if I'm wrong. Cat got 12, right?
Um, Cat got Cat got 11.
Who got 12?
That was Jake. It was merge at 12, I think.
Oh, it was merge at 12. My bad.
Yeah.
That's awkward. Okay, so merge at 12, not 13 like I thought. Okay, so Cat gets 11th. Another blow. That one sucked. And I'm still sour about that because, um, I don't know. Me personally, we were given a mental health break. And the entire purpose of like the mental health break was for people to, like recuperate and feel like better mentally. And like, I mean, maybe people did it from like my side. You saw me. I wouldn't know. I, honestly, like swear to God, whatever it is to prove, like I'm being honest. I didn't strategize at all during the mental health break, but I know the people from Monokuma did. And that still leaves like kind of like a sour taste in my mouth because the whole purpose of that was to like not strategize. And I'm pretty sure the person who won the season admitted to using the mental health break as a strategy. So, that still kind of annoys me, but, we don't have to talk about that because I'm not going to. But, I just wanted to put that out there, that people did that and I didn't. So, um, and then we have 10th. I believe Skylar gets 10th because they are idled out, or not idled out. It was very obvious Abe had the idol because of the friendship fragments twist. Everybody from our tribe that was getting voted off just kept giving their fragments to Abe. So he had the idol. They sniffed it out. He misplayed it because, of course, he did. And Skylar goes home there. Abe gets 9th because Abe was my number one ally the whole season, but at the same time, he
Sorry, I
did a
don't
lot.
mean to interrupt. I just
Oh yeah,
maybe you did merge at 13 because I know for a fact that Toxic got 9th, but I know also that Abe went right after Skylar. So maybe
I
Cat
think
did get
we
12.
because Jake got 13th, right? Who
And
would have got?
Cat would have gotten 12.
Okay, so Kat got 12. Um, yeah, I'll just where's the Edgic? I'll just pull it up to like correct myself here. Uh, yeah, so it was Jake. Yeah, Jake got 13th, Kat got 12th, Skylar got 11th, and Abe got 10th, So those are all people who trusted me and what that, just getting out right after one another. The first break I caught this season, one of the few breaks I caught this season was Toxic getting sent home. I forgot what the vote was like for that, but I just know
It was a tie.
it was a tie. Yeah, who did it tie between? Oh
Frost.
yeah, Frost, right? Yeah, because they tried getting Frost out because of the middle game that he was playing. Um, and then I think Tanner had the blackened, I'm pretty sure, so we used that in the tie and got sent Toxic home. Um, Tanner goes home right after that. Um, this was when Maddie tried getting out Mariano. Again, I think this time. And I can't remember all what happened because that was one of the few votes this like every other vote this season. I was told because I did have good social relations with people from original Monokuma. I was aware of who was going home. The Tanner vote was something that like, and I was working that day, so I told people straight up that I have to know the vote beforehand or else I'm just gonna get left out, and that's what happened. I got left out because I didn't have time to socialize at all. Um, so Tanner goes home. It's final 7 now. I'm the only Usami left. So it's definitely a weird feeling. Um, what's it called? Frost. Oh no, Maddie gets out. This vote tied. Frost had the blackened. They Monokuma tried taking me out, but Neuron flipped. So they didn't go to rocks because I think the chances During rocks, because I think Barney had immunity. Um, so, or no, was it? I forgot how it worked out, but like my side, what's it called? Like there was like a one, like they had a 3 and 4 chance basically of getting rocked out. So it wasn't ideal for them to go to rocks. So they didn't go to rocks. Um, Frost gets out. It was kind of like me or him kind of thing. So that felt really sucked. He helped me out a lot. So it was unfortunate to vote him off. Um, and then Mina gets out, same thing. I kind of had, I attached myself to Mina and Frost because I knew they were shields that would, seen as bigger jury threats to me. So that's kind of this, that's like the main strategy I was able to do in Merge. Because unfortunately, with how tight knit Monokuma was, I wasn't really able to make big moves. So, and I think that's definitely what impacted the end part, which I'll talk about in like a minute here. But yeah, no, that's what happens at the Mina revote. It's just like I have to vote her off because there's no other option. Plus, she has like, I mean, she won Player of the Season, so if she gets to the end, she probably wins. Not probably, she most definitely probably wins. Um, Mariano gets out. I win immunity. That immunity was easy breezy. I don't really know how people struggled on it, but that's just me. Mariano gets sent packing because he was also perceived as a jury threat. And then the end part of the season, which I'm still a little sour about because I barely lost. And I win this season if Abe just doesn't leave the server for whatever reason that he chose to leave the server. He did. Um, and that costed me the win ultimately because the vote tied 3-3-3. Um, the way the tie was corrected, Neuron, I like looking back at it, like the vote tying 3-3-3, it doesn't even matter who Jake. Like if Jake voted Barney, Barney picks Haran. Like I lose in like that scenario like 9 times out of 10. So, and it just sucks losing there because after everything I went through, it's like man, like I should really. I don't know. For me personally, if I was on a tribe and my tribe got pagonged, but one person from my tribe made it all the way to the end and everyone plays Survivor differently and votes differently, and that's fine. But me personally, if that happened, I'm voting the person who survived Paganing. Like the fuck, like they had to go through a lot. And like it's just I don't know. Like I won't bash anybody or anything, but I'm like it still like kind of confuses me that like people from my original tribe that got pagonged voted the people who were behind it and didn't vote for me in the end. I'm still a little like confused on that part because personally I don't get it, but yeah. So that's like my gameplay. Fortunately, not like a whole lot of moves I can talk about because, as everyone knows, I didn't have any power the whole season. So
Okay, thank you so much for explaining that. It really helps kind of get into your head a little bit and see things from your perspective. And I do agree that that is basically how it played out. I mean, from our perspective as well, which is really sad to say because it's like, I mean, on one hand, this was a good season because of all the fun personalities that we had. On the other hand, like the gameplay was just awful, and it was almost like the Monokumas were the bad guys, and the bad guys kept winning, and they did win in the end, and so it was like not the best outcome. You had it this underdog who was you that everyone was rooting for, and you just couldn't come through with the win due to things that were outside of your control, which is really the narrative of the entire season, just things that are beyond your control, which is, I don't know, just like really sad.
yeah, I don't know. It definitely. I don't know. Like me personally, obviously I'm biased, but like I still think I should have won this season. Like I get Barney and Iran played really good games, but like they played Survivor like they only watched like the first 4 seasons. Like they watched Borneo to Marquesas and thought to themselves like, yeah, this is the way we're gonna play Survivor. And that might sound like shade, but it like ultimately that's like the games they played. Like they played well, but it was like convincing people not to flip, sticking to a majority alliance the whole way through and just dominating another tribe, which I don't know. If I was spectating the season, I would be bored out of my mind. Like it's like every vote you pretty much know what's going to happen. Like the outcome is like predictable. So I don't know. It was probably, I imagine it was really redundant as like a spectator or even like a host watching it from like a side, I guess.
Right. It definitely felt that way at times. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, the votes, like you said, were predictable, and for the most part, and we knew what was gonna happen. And as much as we loved these characters of Monaco, it's like change it up, like play the game, and they did in their own way, but just not the way that is fun to watch. So I definitely see where you're coming from.
Yeah, no, it
Oh, go
was.
ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say it was rough. It was definitely, um, it like don't like I guess the last thing note I'll leave on that whole thing was every tribal that I was like going into before I got to the point where I was just like, yeah, nothing's gonna go my way. But for a bit at the merge, every time like there was like it always seemed like there was a chance to like flip the season or flip the dynamics in some way whatsoever. Um, but it just like ended up like I think by the time Abe got out, I got to the point where I kind of just gave up on expecting anything that would benefit me to like actually happen because it wasn't happening and it hadn't happened the whole season. So
That makes sense. While you were telling your story, I wrote down a couple of questions. I have about 12 questions here. One of them you kind of already answered, but we can touch on it anyway. These aren't hard questions. If they seem like they're pointed at all or like like not attacking, they're definitely not like that. But like downplaying your game, that's not the intention at all. It's just just like speak up if it does seem like that. But the first one I have is you mentioned in the very beginning this whole dynamic of the VC alliance was a very strong part of the narrative and a strong part of the story and a thing that people were very, very, very afraid of. And I was along with this idea of something called like VC meta, if you're familiar with that term.
yeah.
And I don't know, I just want to see your takes on VC meta in general.
Well, the last two actually didn't really happen so much in a vat org, but in the org I played before this in Geo org, I after the season or after I got out, I realized that people were building these deeper connections upon one another through VCing all the time. And it wasn't like they weren't VCing in tribe chat, but like one-on-one VCing. So going into Villain Viver, like I wasn't gonna ask people to like VC, but in my head, it's like this is like actually no, I think in a vat org too. I can't remember who, but people were talking about how they VC'd a lot all the time, like privately and stuff like that. And so like my first two org experiences, I'm missing out on like building my social game because I'm not like VCing with people all the time. So like I don't know, it got to the point where it's like I've I don't know, in my head I thought it was like something that I needed to do. So oh my I just drank water too fast.
No, are you okay?
Oh my god. Yeah, I do it all the time and I never learn from it. Fuck. Jesus. I sorry, I always drink water way too or I drink anything way too fast and I always oh my god. Okay, I'm not dying. But
God.
yeah, no, like the first two ones I played in going into like Villain Viver, I just thought to myself that like this is something that if the chance presents itself, or if the opportunity presents itself, I should say, I felt like it was something I should probably do because I don't know, my last two experiences, like I'm missing out on some social like relationships and whatnot because I'm not in these like I'm not VCing with people. So I thought, yeah, I guess I will, if I need to, I'll sit in the VC. And that's what I did. Obviously, people were very wary of it. So the VC meta in this season obviously didn't work out, as anyone could see because the kind of got obliterated at the start. And in terms of a VC meta in general, I'm not too fond of it. I don't really think, I don't know, me personally, like, I'm on my computer a lot. I have a lot of online friends because I have social anxiety, so I don't really have too many friends in real life and stuff. So I'm usually on a VC with like friends who I've been friends with for years, met them through like games and whatnot. So I'm not really too, for me personally, like for me to sit in like a voice call with somebody from an org, it just feels weird. And although like I got to be close with the people in the VC Alliance, at least during the season, and I haven't talked to any of them since the season ended. But me personally, I don't like a VC meta personally. Like it's just it's I don't feel like I should be missing out on gameplay or my social relationship with somebody isn't as high as somebody else's because I'm not voice calling with them all the time. Like I don't think I should have to be VCing with people all the time because I have my own friends I want to talk to. And that's like the only negative thing that I've ever had with orgs is it kind of takes up a lot of free time that I have. Like I wasn't able to like talk to like my friend group that I have, like my online friend group, like the people that I talk to every day. I wasn't able to talk to them for like 4 days because or however many days like the marining phase during season 6 was because I thought I needed to be on VC like all the time with these people because that's just the way it played out in my other seasons. So for me personally, VC meta is not something that I hope it doesn't occur in other orgs personally because I just don't really think holy fucking stroke. I don't think it'd be something that is like dictating relationships with people or dictating how a season plays out personally. But that's just me.
And I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but VC meta is pretty common, and I've played like around 50 orgs, and in every single one that has had people who VC like in public, VC meta has been an issue.
Oh my god.
Yeah. So for those, I should have explained this in the beginning, but for those unfamiliar with the term, VC meta is kind of this idea. See it more so with, well, I mean, first of all, it can be this idea of people feeling closer to others because they're on a voice call, because they talk to each other over voice, which is, I guess, isn't something that you can really control. Like you naturally feel closer to these people because you can actually hear them, you can hear the inflection in their tone. Like sometimes you're VCing for hours, so that makes sense. But the main issue with VC meta is, say you have like your tribe VC, and this is just an example, but there are two people who are sitting and they're talking. It's this natural thought process of, oh, those two must be close because they're talking to each other, or, oh, those two must be strategizing since they're the only two people in there. So I have to go in there. And so it makes a lot of people feel like they have to sit on VC all the time. They can't leave the VC or else they're going to be missing out or they're going to get talked about. So that's kind of what VC meta is for those who aren't familiar.
Yeah, that's
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say real quick, that's definitely like what you just said was my entire thought process. Was like, man, I just don't want to miss out on strategy. And it died down after like the first tribal kinda, or not the first tribal, like the first like three. Once we swapped, it was like completely gone. But like up until we swapped, like there was just people in VCs like all day long, and it's like I mean, I guess most of this cast honestly didn't give a fuck. Like most of them like were like just didn't care to join. But like me personally, I just thought like, yeah, I got to be in here, or else I'm gonna miss out. So yeah,
Well, and what's really interesting about VC meta is that most of the time in private VCs, obviously people are strategizing, but in public VCs, not much strategy goes on. Maybe occasionally. It happened in your season. Occasionally people would strategize over VC, but really it doesn't happen all that often. So it's really kind of an irrational fear. It drives people anyway and forces them into these positions where they will go into it. So it's unfortunate, but kind of the point that I'm trying to get at, and this isn't like my interview, but don't fall victim to the VC meta mentality, because you're usually not missing out on anything except for silence. Happens a lot. I'm sure you can attest to that, Tristian. After,
Oh yeah, I
what
know.
was the first day VC? Fucking like 12, 14 hours long. It was outrageous.
Yeah, it was just crazy, and it's like no, like people kept joining and stuff, and they wouldn't like stop talking, and like in my head, like I was like, man, I want to talk to my friends, but it's just like I don't know. I thought I needed to be in that damn VC. I thought it was like life, like early on in the game. I'm like, man, if I'm on this voice call, sitting with these people, talking for like 12 hours a day, I'm gonna get first boot.
Right? That's how a lot of people in your position feel. So like, you're definitely not alone. I do want to move on to the next question. And this is something that we've talked about privately. So, but I'm just going to bring it up for everyone else to hear. Maddie actually, on the swap tribes, Maddie spoke a lot in our interview and in his confessionals about how much he liked you, a lot in due to your social game abilities, but just in general, he really liked you. And Maddie was one of those people who didn't want to do the pagonging all the way through. So he mentioned multiple times, like, if he could save you, he would. However, I think you were right. It's unlikely that he would have been able to, especially in Maddie's position where he thought that he had more power than he did. But clearly, you had an effect on him. So, but like, I feel like I rarely saw you talk about him. So, like, what was the dynamic of your relationship throughout the entire game, not just the swap?
Um, well, I did enjoy Maddie talking to him on the swap tribes. Um, and our relationships kind of sucked. Not to the fault of either of us, to the fault of Abe, because when we were talking about it privately, like, um, I forgot the name of Abe's like swap tribe, but they like lose immunity. And everyone knows how Abe played this season. He was very paranoid. And he tells me that Maddie told him that if Abe's tribe voted off Sophie, that Maddie would be inclined to get his tribe to vote me off. As I've now learned, that was misconstrued and not what Maddie had actually said. And what he said, I believe what you said, was that he said if Abe's tribe votes off Sophie, there's a good chance that my tribe will want to vote off me. Um,
Correct.
and so, yeah, and so Abe tells me that, and of course, if your number one ally tells you something, like granted, I knew how Abe was as a player, and he was paranoid, but he usually was always truthful. Um, I'm gonna believe it to some extent. So like, I kind of like didn't try to like I because of that I the strategizing relationship I had with Maddie was kind of like non-existent for the most part. Um, because like that's like one of the things I have to go off, and it's like it's not really something I'm too fond of, knowing that like, hey, this guy wanted to vote me off. But like whenever Maddie came, and there was many times where he tried to get Mariano out and stuff, I was always down. But like my tribe kind of fucked it up. Like every time Maddie told us that or like when he tried to like make a move on and like, get rid of this fucking paganing that was going on, um my tribe just never trusted him, and I'm like, guys, like Abe in particular, it's like if someone's handing you a life jacket, you don't just say no, I'm good, I'll swim. Like I knew how important, like, and like me and Maddie, I felt bad because I voted him twice, but at the same time, I never wanted to vote Maddie. If I had it my way, like I would have voted off like Mariano and Barney like early at the end of the merge, at the start of the merge, because they never talked to me like ever. Like I would message them and I wait like 3 days to get a response. So um I never wanted to vote Maddie, but I kept having to vote Maddie because my tribe was so insistent, or I guess alliance, whatever you want to say. But my allies and whatnot were really insistent on voting off Maddie, like they wouldn't do anything else. So that kind of like fractured our relationship. But then it got to the point where it was just like it wasn't salvageable. It was me and him on two opposite sides. We were tied in that vote. And like looking back at it, I definitely like wanted to work with Maddie. It's just outside forces throughout, like without my like what am I saying? Outside forces kind of fucked that up, being my allies and stuff. And yeah, no, like looking back at it, I wish I could have done more, but at the same time, it's like even if I tell Maddie yes, and even if we developed a good relationship, given his position, I don't think much would have come out of it because of how strong the Monokuma alliance was. So like, I did like Maddie, and we had good conversations about personal stuff. And for people that know me, like I like to build up my social game through connecting to people on a personal level and then transitioning that into a game aspect, which I think I did really well this season. Um, so, I always had good personal talks with Mally. Mally, holy shit. I always had good personal talks with Maddie. But it's just like, yeah, no, outside forces just didn't let it be. My allies never wanted to give him the chance, and because of that, we never got to work together the way I wish we would have because he tried. He was one of the people who tried. It just sucks that he didn't have as much power. And it just sucks that my allies just never gave him the time of day to help us out because we definitely needed it, but they just were always so wary of Maddie trying to help us out. So yeah.
I appreciate that perspective, and I really appreciate how you take acknowledgement of the fact that the Usamis did kind of have a hand in the Pagonging, because you all, and I'm not saying that it's entirely your fault, it was definitely Monokuma's fault, more so, but Maddie did what Mina did eventually, except for Maddie could have given you all the power, except for the Usamis just made sure that that didn't happen, by, like you said, not trusting him. And some of that fault lies on Maddie and how sketchy he was. I know that he played a very back and forth game.
Yeah.
It's just, yeah, and a lot of people don't realize that things could have been different if only Abe in particular, who was kind of running the Usamis, would have given Maddie a chance.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I don't want to like shove all the blame on the one person, but the Usami's like doing it to ourselves. It's like 95% of that blame is on Abe, and then like 5% the rest of us. Because Abe, he, looking back at it, I wish I attached myself to some, like me and him connected right away. We were like number one, like right off the bat during marooning. In hindsight, I would have picked like anyone else because Abe destroyed his own game, and he fucked up like everyone's game around him, myself included. He fucked up Cat's game. He did the same thing with Skylar. Like he kind of just like we were already in a bad hole, and he just like grabbed the shovel and said, "Here, let me dig you like 6 feet, like 6 feet like deeper." It's pretty much what happened because he was paranoid. He was paranoid. He was like it's kind of like absurd how paranoid Abe was. Like I don't like you like spectators probably saw it through his confessionals,
Oh,
but
yeah.
as somebody that he bombarded with his paranoia in DMs all day every day, when he got voted off, it was like, "Oh man, I just lost an ally." But at the same time in my head I'm like, "Oh my gosh. I can like stress free, like no more anxiety that's being dumped on me from him. Like I'm free." So it definitely sucks that that's the way things played out, but I want to say Usami. Abe kind of did it to us. Like he kind of like shafted our chances of we're stopping this begoning, unfortunately.
So this isn't part of my questions that I've written down, but it brings up a question, two questions actually, but I'll get into the first one. What made you guys kind of let Abe be the leader of things? If you knew, because there were a lot of complaints about Abe in confessionals and how paranoid he was and how the paranoia was like pissing everyone off. And you would think that that would make you want to get rid of someone. And I know that you can't like exactly get rid of your allies when you're in your position, but you also, and this isn't me blaming you all. I'm just trying to get to the bottom of it. It's like also don't have to put that person in the most position of power, you know? So I'm just curious how that happened.
Um, well, usually the leaders of a side in Survivor, or like the leader of Alliance, whatever, most often they're the most vocal. And you need somebody like that because you got people in like alliances such as myself. I play very under the radar. I try not to be like visible and stuff, and I try to like not be detected. And so I thought Abe, during like the pre-merge and stuff, he was paranoid, but it wasn't anything too crazy. So I just kind of like let him do his own thing, and he was like really vocal. And I thought that'd be good. And then come merge, his paranoia just kind of like went like overblown. And so it's not necessarily something in hindsight. Yeah, I probably should have been more vocal, or somebody else from Usami should have been more vocal. But like how bad his paranoia was, and like him being sketchy and all that stuff that like he played the game. It didn't really get bad until merge, so that's probably the reason why. And the reason why he was the leader is just he was the most vocal. Like there's like nobody else from our side that was like as vocal as him. Skylar was also kind of vocal, but they weren't. It wasn't like on the same extent Abe was.
Right. That kind of leads me to the second part, which is, or the second question, which a standout moment in the season was certainly when Abe dropped that video that I think it was like 18 minutes long.
Yes,
Where
it
he,
was.
he like called and people watched it. People watched it, specs and players alike. And that was kind of the head of his paranoia and his vocalness and outspokenness. And I don't think I remember your reaction to that. So if you could just touch on what his video inspired in you.
Um, so I don't know if I touched upon this in my confessional, but Abe was the first person. I was the first person Abe sent the video to. He posts. I look at my DMs and I see a YouTube link, and I'm just like, "What am I looking at here?" And he's like, "Oh, I made this video. Um, you want to give me the green light so I can post it in tribe chat?" And I was like, um, and he was like, "You can watch it if you want." I don't know if I ever said it. I never watched it. I
Okay.
I saw an 18-minute video of Abe talking, and I was like, I'm a pass on this one. But I told him like, if you really think this will help us out, if you really think that sending this video will do good, and like you want to do it, go ahead, knock yourself out. I don't care. And then people started DMing me about it, like, "Oh, did you watch the Abe video? What do you think about the Abe video?" And I'm just like, "I didn't watch it." And then people were like, Frost in particular was one who kind of like expanded on it and like said like, "Oh, what Abe said. I'm on the bottom and stuff." And I'm just like, I don't think, because I didn't watch the video myself, but I think Abe's perception of the game at that point was kind of far off in the sense that like he put like he like separated the Usami and the Monokuma, and then put people in the middle as people who like Toxic was trying to get out. I don't really think anybody was in the middle at that point besides maybe Minori. I think they were all like one tight knit unit. And I think what he was trying to accomplish with that video ultimately failed because I don't think they bought like I don't really think anyone bought into what he was like selling, like maybe I'm wrong. I never looked at confessionals, but I don't know if his goal, like what he set out to do with that video, was ever accomplished.
Oh, I can tell you straight up that that video was the final nail in his coffin. And
Well,
the final nail in Usami's coffin, honestly, because people at that point were kind of like the Monokumas were kind of like considering turning on each other. Then Abe posted that video and they were like, "Oh, well now we can't turn on each other." So it did the exact opposite of what he thought it was going to do.
of course it did, man. Of course it did. Abe did a really good job of killing whatever chances we ever had of flipping like the season like on its head. Like he was really good at. Oh my gosh, that kind of annoys me. I can't lie. I'm not. It, or yeah, no, it bugs me a little bit to like learn that like we had like a good chance of like the season switching, and then it's just like I already knew Abe fucked up our chances of switching the seasons, like dynamics and all that during the season. But like, man,
Yeah.
he, yeah, I nope, I I have nothing really else to expand on it that I haven't already said. It's just like, wow.
It's really unfortunate, and this isn't like the Abe interview, so like we won't like go full into it. I will say Abe was wildly entertaining, very fun to watch, but playing with him, I can imagine. No. So anyway, we will move on from Abe. However, I hate to do this to you at this point in time, but I do have another bomb to drop on you. So just like prepare yourself and let me know when you're ready.
Oh, I'm ready.
Okay. Jake and Skylar had been working with the Monokumas from the very beginning. They were a duo, as everyone knew. Like it was very
Oh yeah, that was obvious.
they were a duo, and they got in really tight with the Monokumas, and they fully had plans to flip on you all because of the VC alliance. And also there was something that one of the stray votes in at the first tribal got like blamed on Jake, even though it wasn't Jake. Yeah, so there was like some of that. But Jake was really connected to Naran on a personal level, and they did strategize a lot together, and so that was their in. And they fully like had an alliance with the Monokumas, or the Hot Babes in particular. And yeah, so what are your reactions to Jake and Skylar working with the Monokumas?
I'm kind of glad they got Pagong then. That sounds harsh, but I mean, I like I tried my best to work with them too. So, you know, I'm not really sure where they had me on trust rankings and stuff like that. But I get it. Um, everyone knew Jake and Skylar was a duo. That was like very obvious. I didn't know that they were like working with the Monokunas that close from the start, and for me, that's kind of weird. Because like I had good relationships with people from Monokuma during like the original like tribe division, but I didn't strategize with them because they're not on my. And that was like the way I felt about stuff was like, you know, Abe always asked me like, because he would talk strategy with people from the opposite tribe like all the time when we started off the season, and he would talk to me about it. I'm like, bro, I don't fucking care. Like, they're not on my tribe. I'll build up a good relationship with them like socially, but I'm not gonna take the time to strategize with them when they're not on my tribe. Why did my monitor just turn off? What the fuck?
Oh,
Okay, that's weird. My monitor just went black, but it's back. I think it's because I was sitting idle for like a long ass time. That's probably why.
okay.
Or because I was just chilling on Discord. But yeah, no, I mean I did learn of that when I was reading Naran's because I read Naran and or I skimmed through Naran's and Barney's jury speech. So I'm kind of glad that Jake got sniped at the bloodbath then. And that kind of trumped their efforts of getting in with the Monokumas because if that would have happened, I definitely don't get as far as I do. So I don't know, it kind of just sucks because like I could have played a much more better game this season and a game that I would have actually liked to play if I just didn't fall into the lure of like the VC meta. If I didn't get struck by, oh, I gotta strategize with these people in a voice call all the time, you know, like if I just didn't fall into like that trap, I guess you could say, I would have the season would have definitely turned out a lot better. So
Understood. Fully understood. And even your perspective of being glad that they got sniped, that makes sense too, because like you said, if Jake hadn't gone, if they hadn't flipped on Jake, which is still wild to me, then you definitely would not have made it to the end 100%, because Jake and Skylar would have been the last you saw me standing. So interesting that we talk about Skylar in particular. Skylar and Abe were really ones to like rock the boat. I don't know if you knew this, but Skylar, after the Jake vote, got into a public fight, a public being an alliance chat with Neuron and was just like berating Neuron, not on a personal level, but game stuff. And so Skylar was definitely one of the more outspoken people, as you have mentioned before, who kind of rocked the boat a little bit. So I'm wondering, do you ever have the idea to rock the boat? And if you did, why did you not jump on that opportunity?
I'll say, and I kind of answered this when Sky, because I know Skylar kind of like directed a question like this towards me when they were doing their jury questioning. But I noticed that the people from our tribe that were getting voted off had targets on them, or they were vocal or perceived as good players. So I made sure I shut up and I didn't rock the boat, and I made sure I wasn't vocal because I knew if I was, I wouldn't have got to second place. So, and like just the way I play Survivor are just orgs, and I actually yeah, no, the way I play Survivor orgs, um, I wasn't able to execute it this season, but I like to play like a middle game, of like fluctuating between like sides and whatnot, and making sure I have a good social relationship with everybody. So I play very under the radar, very hands blood free in terms of doing moves and whatnot. Um, like that's just the way I play. So, and going forward, whenever I decide to end my like couple months, or actually it'll be a couple of months, but whenever I decide to end my org hiatus, like I'll never be the one to rock the boat. That's just not how I roll. And I've seen people who've rocked the boat in orgs, and usually they get out. So it's like it's just it's just not how I play. Like I've been playing because I used to play Roblox long terms and whatnot and all that fun jazz. I've been playing the same way for years. It's just kind of like my comfort zone. Like it's my strong suit. I know how to like execute it properly because I've done it before. So yeah, no, it's kind of just like me personally. I'll never be one to rock the boat. That's just not me.
Got it. Okay. So no, I definitely got that vibe from you. You're not you're definitely not an OTT player, which is absolutely fine. We season full of them is overwhelming. So it was nice to kind of have you as a calm. This next question you kind of answered already, so I do have a backup question. What exactly you are? Okay, let me start over. You were not shy about saying that you had practically given up. And there's no shame in that, especially with how the season went. But I'm just wondering exactly when was the give up moment? I think you mentioned around the time of the Abe vote.
Yeah, the give up moment was. Let me just look at episode extras to look at the Edgic things early. Yeah, the give up moment was. It was like the president was kind of like Abe, but I had like a little glimmer of hope because of the toxic thing. But final seven, like after Tanner got out, I was like that was when my mental was kind of just like destroyed. And that's when I had like given up on the like for me, I just didn't see a way that I won the season. And I kind of just carried on, like even like during like jury questioning. Jack knows, I would just constantly like DM him and like, man, like this shit just feels so hopeless. I don't feel like I'm gonna win because, I look at my and obviously quality over quantity, but I look at like my answers to jury questions in comparison to Ron and Barney, and like I wrote like a couple sentences and I see like fucking like an essay, and I'm just like, man, like it kind of never ended my whole give up like, and I hate, like I never give up on shit because that's just not who I am as a person. But the way the season went, like it was like I had that attitude from basically like president, like I said, final nine, Abe getting out, and then final seven to end of the season was when I was like, yeah, there's no chance I win this season.
See, and like I said, there's like no shame. I mean, I feel like anyone in your position would have given up probably a lot sooner. So it's amazing that you lasted with hope for as long as you did. Which leads me into the next question, which is, did you ever think that you did have a shot at winning? And if so, when were those times?
I'll answer this question, but my food delivery came. So I
Okay.
will be like 15 seconds as I run upstairs real quick.
No problem. No problem. While Tristian is getting his food, I do want to remind everyone that the next few days until the 31st, so that gives you about 3 days, I think, as of me recording this, you can apply for season 7, which is Fans versus Favorites. It's Hercules themed. It's going to be incredible. There's going to be some of these season 6 players on there potentially, depending on who gets voted in. And if you're listening and don't want to play but want to root on your favorites, you can go to the spectator voting and find the form to vote for your favorites. You can vote 5 times a day, and you can vote for whoever you want with those 5 votes. So that is just a little break moment.
Casual plug for Fans versus Favorites. Love to see it.
That was quick.
Yeah, I made sure to run up. Well, that's usually how I am when I order food. I try to get it like as quick as possible because sometimes like the food delivery drivers, like at least on DoorDash, because they have to take the photo of it,
Yeah.
they'll kind of like just sit there and wait for me to grab it. I don't know why, because I get the notification on my phone that it's here. And so like there was one time where I took like 5 minutes, and I just saw the dude in his car just like chilling, like outside my place for 5 minutes, and I felt so bad because I was like, man, he could have been like doing another delivery right now or like anything else.
Right.
So, yeah, no, I try to like grab my food as quick as possible. But to answer the question of when I thought I had a chance of winning, um, honestly, it wasn't until and I never really had like a outright or I never had the mentality that like, oh yeah, I can win this, win this. It was kind of like a little glimmer of like, oh, maybe I can win this season. And it was pretty much. It kind of sounds sad to say, but like the only point was final tribal council. Like that was where I was like, man, I made it this far. You know, surely these people who watched our tribe get pagonged would reward me with, winning the season. Obviously that didn't happen, but yeah, it was pretty much just final tribal, like final 3, like, or actually, I had upon winning the Final Four Immunity Challenge and knowing I was in Final Tribal Council, I kind of felt like that helped my resume because I was like a really clutch. Um, I say clutch because it was like I definitely needed it. It wasn't like too clutch though because I kind of won. I won't. I can't remember how quick Barney did it, but I know I did it like in under an hour, and it was meant to take an hour. But um, yeah, no, it was kind of like a little bit Final Four, and then like Final Tribal Council was pretty much like the only times I thought I had a shot of winning. Because even when I was like the final Usimi left, in my head it's just like, yeah, they're not gonna like vote me because, I don't know, I didn't. What's it called? Especially when Maddie went out and he said, you hadn't made. I had like he directed towards me. He was like, you didn't make any big moves, so I won't be voting for you. I was like thinking, I was kind of mad about that in my confessional because it was just like, man, you be in my position and you try to make a big move because I'd like to see you try because it just wasn't feasible. So yeah, no, it was pretty much just those like that area of the game was when I was like, maybe I have a shot of winning this.
And honestly, the people watching, I mean, it was hard for us to think that you would win until you did win that final immunity. And we all kind of had the same feelings right alongside with you, where we were like, surely if Tristian gets to the end, he's going to win, right? Like, it makes no sense for him to not. But we did have those doubts with you not making any moves, which wasn't your fault. But we did think that ultimately the Usami blood was thicker than water, and that ended up to not be the case, unfortunately. But I think that you were right in thinking that you had a shot, and you did come very close to it. I mean, it was a 3-3-3 tie. So I hope that you're proud of what you did accomplish while you were in the game, even if it may not have been up to the standards of some others.
I mean, if it wasn't up to the standards of other people, like, might come off as rude, but like, kindly, like, fuck off. Like, what else am I supposed to do in that season? Like, given like what I like my position, like I like I firmly believe that I played out that season the best way. Like given like my position, I played it out the best way I could have. I honestly don't see any way I could have went around what had happened to me and like gone about it differently and like done better.
Right. I don't mean to shift gears, but this is a question that came to me, and there's a question later on that I had to take off anyway, so this fits in. But it has nothing to do with what we were talking about just then. Um, who would you consider your overall number one, and why did you choose them to be your number one?
Um, Overall number one. Definitely. Oh, geez. Definitely, I would say Abe, but overall, like all things considered, probably Minari, Mina, um, and as soon as Abe left, I think there was like at one point where I put Naran on number one on my trust rankings, but Minari was like, or Mina, I don't know why I keep saying both, but she was who I felt the closest with because um we had developed like a good relationship. Um and she tried helping me out, she did like the best like she could and everything and like I just thought that what's it called? Yeah, all things considered, she's probably my number one. We worked closely together. When Abe got out, she was the person I relied on the most, and it was kind of weird because we never like DM'd each other a whole lot. But we just had like quick conversations and stuff that like were like straight to the point. Like we knew what we had to do to like help each other out. Uh, Although she did send me a lot of like our conversations that outside of the game was just her giving me a lot of K-pop music recommendations, which I enjoyed most of. Or actually, yeah, no, I enjoyed all of them. So yeah, I'd say her more than Abe, especially considering what's it called? Considering the way Abe's impact fell upon like my game as a whole. I'd rather like I'd consider Minori more of a number one in terms of like because when you think of a number one, you think of someone who has like your back and you have their back. Um, and that was kind of like after Abe got out, me and Mina kind of had that relationship on a game level. Um, and with Abe, when Abe was in the season, I had his back and he had my back. In theory, but he did like a lot of what he did in the paranoia and all that did a lot like damaged my game. So yeah.
Right. That's a really interesting answer. I just find it so interesting how Monokuma ended up being your number one, all things considered. But of course, being who it is, she was literally. I think it was Naran who was like, "You don't have." No one said that you had to be the savior of the Usamis, and she was like, "No, but I want to." And so it makes sense why it would be her of everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we're gonna jump backwards a little bit, and I want to ask, how did you approach Final Tribal Council, knowing the position you were in and the competition you were up against, if you felt like they were competition at all?
What's it called? Going on the Final Trouble Council, I know there was like slightly a shot. Um, I was aware that Neuron played a really good game. That was something I knew of. Um, I knew of the competition from Neuron for sure because he was really, you know, like he was on he like I knew of his under the radar game. Like he didn't tell me, but like I had a feeling there was a lot more than what lied on like the I guess what everybody else, like perception, I guess. Neuron had a really good way of changing the perception of his gameplay that allowed him to play the way he did. So I consider Neuron competition. Um, I'll just say it. What's it called? Like for a good part of the merge, I forgot Barney was in the season because he never talked to me, and I just didn't like I didn't know he was in the season for a decent bit because he never talked to me, and like I never saw him like around and whatnot, and like in terms of like strategy, and I never really heard him like getting like like when you're strategizing for a vote, you'll hear people saying like, "Oh, this person said this person said that." I never ever heard people saying, "Oh, Barney said this." And, he did what he had to do because he won the season, but I didn't consider him competition, like, because I don't know that I get maybe that's a maybe bringing Barney to the end was a bad idea, I guess, in hindsight. Like when Skylar asked me the question saying like, "Oh, why did you vote out Mariano?" I felt like Barney definitely should have been voted off here. Maybe I fucked up. Maybe I costed myself the win by bringing Barney to the end, but I didn't consider him a threat to win because I don't know. He did a really good job of masking how much of an impact he had on the season by being under the radar. So
You'd have to go through confessionals and understand Barney's game, because I was similar to you, whereas I wasn't really around for season 6 very much due to being busy with work. But whenever I did finally get caught up, anyway, let me start over. So I wasn't really around, and so I had the same idea as you. I was like, Barney hasn't done anything. Barney's a goat. Like Barney doesn't. There's no way Barney would win. Whenever I finally got caught up, I was like, oh my God, Barney has been masterminding this whole game. And that's after I had read all the confessionals and really saw where he connected the dots. And so he did it intentionally. He didn't want you to think that he would be a danger to take to the end. And I think that is in part why he won. But this isn't like the praise Barney episode. So um, yeah.
that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, he played a more masterful game than I think people realize. Like he definitely perfected the craft of the under the radar gameplay. So, a couple more questions. I know you want to eat. I'm so sorry.
Oh no, I can talk and eat at the same time. I don't mind.
Okay, cool. So at the award ceremony, you got I think class president, which was the award for the most social. And I know in your interview, you said that that's the game you play. You don't play a strategic game. You don't play a physical game. You play a social game. And you have touched on this a little bit so far in the interview, but I just want to know, or can you go a little bit more into the social game and how you were able to clutch that award at the end, and really highlight your social abilities?
Well, I kind of touched on it earlier, but when I and I don't know, maybe I'm just stroking my ego here, but I think I'm a really good social player in orgs. And I think that comes from because I feel like some people overthink social game and think that you have to talk strategy with people all the time. I find it easier and both better to talk with people on a personal level, like get to know. Like I do not fucking boom strategy talk right away. I don't like doing that. It doesn't feel natural to me. I like to build up a personal relationship with people, get to know them and whatnot, and then through that personal relationship, upon coming closer to one another, I segue that into a strategic and social relationship that'll benefit me. And I did that with everybody that I could. There were some people this season, Mariano and Barney, and I know they were, well, Barney's gameplay probably. I know Mariano was very busy, but I was never able to do that with them, and it showed because I remember I looked at trust rankings yesterday, and they always had me at the bottom, which is fair because I had them at the bottom, but we just never talked. But I think playing a good social game and the way I was able to win that award was just, I don't know, I knew that being social and not rocking the boat and not being um a what's it called, not the same thing, but I didn't have an extroverted personality in terms of talking about stuff and being talkative, I just made sure to keep to myself, but I always talk to people all the time when I play orgs. And that's why I feel like they take a big part of my social time because I do my best to work my social game. Um, so yeah, no, winning like the best social player, I definitely deserved it 100%. You know, I got second place upon being left alone in a season of a belonging. So, yeah, no, even in that point when I had given up mentally, I didn't give up on the game level. I made sure that I still talked to all those people and I kept building up my social relationships with people like I had been doing the whole season because that's how I play Survivor. Um, so yeah, no, social game is just something that in my opinion, and just like in orgs and stuff like Survivor and Big Brother, they're social games at the end of the day. You have to have a good social relationship to win. And I always believe in playing a really good social game. You transition that into jury management because the jury management is crucial and then you win the season. It's never worked. That's the theory. It's never worked out for me because I usually don't make it to the end because I'm always voted off for being a threat to win. But in theory, that's what like I've cooked up in my head. So that's just how I play Survivor is, talking to people and all that. I just love to talk to people, even though it's ironic because I have really bad social anxiety. But when you're when you're typing to people over a screen, it's different than talking in person. So I don't know. I just like to talk to people, and it helps me out in terms of bolstering like my social game.
With all of that being said, I mean, the social game is really the game that almost everyone can agree is the most important aspect out of strategic, physical, and social. So you always play the game that people want to play, essentially. So do you have any tips for people who want to better their social game?
Um, Better your social game. Make sure, obviously, strategic relationships are important. Um, Make sure you take time to don't just talk to somebody about strategy. Make sure you get to know them on a personal level, because those relationships are usually the ones that go a longer way. So yeah, just get to know people on a personal level, and you can, like I said, segue that into a social relationship for the game. And just keep working at both the personal and social side because that's how you get closer to a person. Um, you know, that's how I got close to Abe. I know Naran and Toxic were like ride or dies during the season, and Naran like attached to him. They said in their speech, or he said, uh, he saw the anime profile picture and started like he connected to Toxic right away, and built up that personal relationship, and that's stuff that you have to do. Um, uh, and I think I kind of hate to say it, but um, bettering your social game, it requires talking to people a lot. I know people have lives, you got jobs and stuff, but you got to do your best to always talk to people. Like the people who play the best social games are the ones that do obviously you're not always going to be available. People have to sleep, eat, go to their jobs, go to university, school, whatever it is. But when you are available, just make sure to do your best that you're always talking to people and not leaving people out in the dry. Because I've only played 3 orgs, but I've seen some people who wonder why they get voted off. And it's like, bro, you don't talk to anyone. So you have to I guess if I had to give 3 tips to better your social game, you just got to talk. No amount is a bad amount besides making little to no effort at all. But as long as you're making the effort, you'll be fine. Make sure you connect on a personal level or have some sort of personal relationship with people so it doesn't feel like you're a game bot. Because when you develop a personal relationship, it makes your relationship with that person for the purpose of working together in the game a lot more genuine. And then the third tip would just be um, trust your instincts with who you want to work, or trust your instincts with how you should play your social game. Like this season coming in the merge, I knew I had to talk to people all the time. And with the one world twist, I knew I had to talk to people all the time. So it depends on the situation that you're presented with. But definitely, like there's times where you have to be social, and there's times you don't have to be as social. Like when your tribe wins an immunity, you don't gotta yeah, still talk to people, but you don't have to like talk strategy all the time. Like that's when you that's when you take the time to build up on a personal level, is when like you don't have to worry about voting somebody off. Like those are really good times to build up that personal relationship, I feel. So like those are like my three tips, or like tips and tricks I would give to people who like want to better like a social game.
Those are definitely top-notch tricks. I know that I just learned a couple of things, so I'm sure others will as well. Thank you for sharing those. So we've talked about the way that you play a social game. We've talked about the way that people shouldn't play pagonging. So what is the ideal way to play Survivor or a Survivor org, in your opinion?
That's an interesting question because there's a lot of different ways you can play. And I don't think there's like one set out ideal strategy. I think everyone is a unique player in their own way. Um, you just got to find what works for you, fine tune it, tweak it a little bit, figure out what works and what doesn't, and really find a strategy that works out for you. Because I don't think there's one ideal strategy. You can just be a physical beast and win the season. You could be the nerdiest gamebot alive and only think about strategy and win the season. You could be a social butterfly and talk to people 24/7 because you don't have a sleep schedule kind of person. Like, there's so many different strategies that you can employ in the game of Survivor to win. So I wouldn't say there's an ideal strategy, but there's an ideal way to formulate a strategy for yourself, and that is to just find something that works for you or something that you enjoy doing. Like when I play orgs, I love talking to people all the time and building up my social game. Um, and like I said, like earlier in the interview and like in my actual interview for the season, I like to play a middle game, you know, playing multiple sides, making sure I'm protected from all sides, being social with everybody around me, using those relationships to make sure I'm always safe and never in hindsight. Um, I didn't mention this in the interview, but I don't have a whole lot of a strategic game. But the one thing I do like to do is when I do execute that strategy, when I have executed that strategy, I find it effective to like plant seeds, not necessarily push something one way, but just like give people like an inkling and an idea of something that you have, or try to give people to do your dirty work for you, like get your hands scot free. You don't have any blood in your hands because you weren't the one who outwardly made the move or who people thought did. So that's a strategy that I employ. So just find something that works for you is like an ideal strategy is what I would say. Like there's no one way to do good and win Survivor, but if you can find something that you like to do, it works for you, you have fun doing it, that would be the ideal way to get upon or get about having your own strategy for orgs.
Yeah, that's solid advice, honestly. I feel like this is turning into the advice podcast. We need to have a separate episode with like you. What is it that RHAP does? It's like the Survivor School or something like that. We need that, but with you.
Yeah. Oh, of course.
So we're gonna get into the last three questions that I have, which are a little bit tougher, a little bit more probing, like a little bit more vulnerable. And if you don't feel comfortable answering them, that's totally fine. But I just feel like you, out of everyone, really would have some good insight on this. So I wanted to ask. My first question was one that I asked everyone, which is, do you talk to anyone from your season? And you did answer that already and said no. So I'm wondering, especially for someone as social as you, usually the social people do keep up those relationships after the game. So what exactly has stopped you from doing so? That isn't like I do want to clarify, that's not like a, you should, like I'm judging you. It's just what happened.
Oh no, I'll say my thoughts, I guess, on that. Um, I know it probably is odd, um, someone who talks about building up a social game the way I do, that I don't talk to people. And it's like I use my social game and I execute it the way I want to for the purpose of winning the season. Like everybody I've developed good relationships with, um, I don't know, the way I'm thinking about it, I'm like, man, this is kind of like I kind of just use like I don't want to say use people, but I use our relationship for the purpose of winning the season. And then outside the season, it's like, yeah, I played with you, it's whatever. Um, but I have you are like the only person I think I've played with in an org that I'm actually friends with, and it's probably because I've become a part of like the Villain Viber community and all that, and like,
Right.
that's nice. But it's like, yeah, no, like if somebody that I played in an org, like if someone from this season of Villain Viber, actually it depends on the person because I'm still a little sour about the paganing and whatnot. But if somebody were to reach out to me and like start talking to me and all that, and like we like develop like a friendly relationship, I wouldn't turn it down. But I'm not gonna take that initiative because I don't know, like I have tons of like friends that I already talked to, so it's like I don't necessarily. No, I mean I could always welcome new friends, but it's just like um, it's weird. It's just the way I've always been. I can't really explain it, which kind of sucks because it would probably give more clarity. But for me, it's like I play in a season, I develop these relationships, I'm social with people, but it never goes to the next step where like we become friends, and that's just the way I am. Like I don't know, like it's just I can't really give like a set reason on why that is the way it is. I think it's just because I play to win. Obviously, everybody plays to win, but I play to win, and then after the season's over, it's like, well, I go on with my life. I go on and doing my everyday thing, whatever it is I'm doing. I go on with whatever it is I'm up to. Like I don't think to talk to like my number one ally that I had during the season and like see how their day is going. So I don't know. It's definitely weird considering how social I am because usually those are the people who what's it called, keep up with people after the season's over. But it's just something I've never really done. And maybe I'll do it in like future orgs I plan and whatnot, but it's just I don't know. I've never thought to myself like, yeah, I should like especially after this season, like season 6, I was like, hell no, I'm not
Right.
talking to any people after this season. Like the fuck? But like the other 2 seasons I played in like Geo orgs and Evat orgs, it's like if the opportunity presents itself, yeah, I'll talk to them. But it's just like I don't know. I've never really made like org friends besides like you, of course. So it's like I don't know. I wish I could give more insight on that, but I don't know why
Okay.
my brain is the way that is. It's just like one of those things that like you don't know why you do it, you just do it.
Oh, yeah. Like I said, this was totally not a judgmental question because I'm similar to you. And I'm more of a strategic player now, but whenever I first started, I was more of a social player like you, but I was the same way. I just didn't maintain those relationships outside unless they joined Villain Viver and became part of this community, which is kind of what happened with me and you. Um, yeah, so yeah, like I said, just not a judgmental question. And the answer you gave is totally insightful. So thank you for being willing to open up about that.
No problemo.
So I don't know how to approach this next one. I know the question, but I need to like figure out how to frame it.
How to ask it?
What? Yeah,
Are you
exactly.
like trying to figure out how to ask it?
So I assume that orgs were like a fun thing for you at some point, which is why you play
Yeah.
them. And this season seemed to have switched that mindset a little bit and soured that perspective, it appears. So what is your perspective on orgs now, and why is that change? Or not why, but what made that change? And just on that note, yeah.
If you would have asked me this like a couple days ago, I would have said my perspective on orgs is that because of the one experience I had in the season 6, I don't have any desire to play them again. But you know, it's like after this season 6, immediately like just want to put this on the record. Um, in case anyone thought like I left the server because I lost, I was gonna leave regardless because I was so like mentally exhausted from the season. I just needed like a break. So like even if I won, I would have left the server. Just just so people know that I didn't just like lose like baby rage and
Right.
like leave the server because I lost. I just want to put that out there. Um this season it took its toll. And I just needed like kind of like a I guess a break, one could say. Like I just needed to like take some time to myself after having to talk to people all the time for like weeks and after everything I like had went through throughout the season. Um, you know, and I don't know when my current org hiatus or whatever, what's it called? Will like end. What's it called? Yeah, I don't know when it's gonna end. But like to answer the question, sorry, I lost my track of thought. Oh yeah. Um It did sour orgs a little bit for me, you know, something I love to play in because I've been doing it since for I was ever. What's it called? And like it's something I've been doing for years, like when I played Roblox and stuff. So, you know, it's just it did sour orgs for me for a bit, obviously. Like after the season was over, my like original like mindset, and I'm pretty sure I told this to you, I was like, yeah, I'm retiring from orgs completely.
Yeah.
Obviously, I've kind of like realized, like, yeah, Tristian, you're being silly. You love playing in orgs. You just had like a fucking terrible experience, which is true. I did. Um, so you know, the season did affect my perception of orgs and how much I enjoyed them for a bit. It took a little bit of time for me to like realize that like I still enjoy playing in orgs and I would you know, whenever it's time, I feel like it's time for me to, or whenever I feel like I'm mentally ready to go through an org. Because like that last season, I feel like people underrate how mentally straining orgs can be for sure. Like that last season, like, whew, that shit was fucking wild. Like, yeah, that it was crazy. Um, what's it called? Lost my track of thought. Yeah, no, it was just yeah, so like it did affect my perception of orgs. I sound like a broken record, but it affected it for a bit. But it takes some time to like, you know, get over it a little bit and like realize, you know, what happened to me in this season is probably not going to happen to the same extent again. At least I hope not. If it did, that would just be really shitty. But yeah, it's just one of those things that like you kind of have to just get over it, you know, realize that that one experience, that one bad experience, and to anyone who's ever had a bad experience as mine, like you just have to realize it's most likely not going to happen again. And it's just like, it's always like, it's never a bad time or it's never a bad idea to take a break from orgs because they are mentally exhausting. And I think like people downplay, I definitely downplayed, um, how mentally straining an org can be because like my first two were like whatever and then I played this one and I was like wow,
Mm.
I never want to play orgs again during the middle of it. But like, you know, I'll definitely play orgs whenever I guess I want to again, which probably shouldn't be too long. Like I'm finally getting over like I'm getting over the season, or I've got over the season, I should say. Little almost over losing. I'm still not quite over that, but like yeah, no. If you would have asked me this like 2 weeks ago, I would have been like, yeah, I'm never playing an org again. Orgs are stupid. I hate orgs. But, you know, obviously with time I've like I want to say reflected, but like with oh my god, I almost dropped my poutine. With time I've gotten like a lot more content with like what happened in this season.
I see. I think that's wonderful news that you are willing to come back because you definitely have power. You have it within you to be one of the greats. just from my experience watching you and my experience playing with you, especially, I know how good you are at this game and how you flourish. And also, speaking as someone who has social anxiety, I think orgs can definitely be damaging to mental health, which is something that we're going to get into in the last question. But like, I can speak from my experience, the social anxiety aspect. This is like a good way to kind of confront that fear a little bit and step outside of your comfort zone, as weird and controlled of an environment as it is. So I think that it's great that you're going to come back, and I'm just very thankful that you're still willing to be part of this community even after what the season had done to you. So thank you for that.
Yeah, I just had to take some time away, yeah. It was just like a really interesting experience, and you know, shit happens, but it's never bad to take time away from something that you enjoy and just I don't know, it's kind of like I want to say it's kind of comparable to burnout. Not like I was playing a lot of orgs, but sometimes you have to take time away from something to mentally recuperate and have a better mental state. Like sometimes I'll burn myself out in a game, and then I have to just not play it for a couple days because it's I realize I gotta do something else because I can't just be doing the same thing all the time.
Mhm. That makes sense. And I did want to mention, I'm someone who's played a lot of Discord orgs, and trust me, I've had my fair share of negative experiences. But what I like to tell myself or remind myself is I've had more positive experiences, and it is something that I enjoy. And every experience is different. We can't, life is like that, not everything can be good. There's always going to be some bad in most things. And it's just are you willing to take the good with the bad? So that's my perspective on it. But
I think that's a really good perspective to have, I feel.
it's lasted me this long. So that's what I can say. Moving on to the last question. And I know Brian wanted to join. I don't know if he has any questions for you, but this is my last question. And it's kind of a big one. And it's more vague a little bit. I know. But you already kind of brought it up. So I just wrote mental health. And so let me figure out how to set this up. Mental health was something that was a big part of this season. We had to have a mental health break in the middle of a tribal because 3 people were threatening to walk. I mean, that's a big deal. And this org in particular is one that is very straining on people. I don't know if it's, I'm still trying to figure out why exactly that is. I don't know, and I would love to fix that. But then, just in general, especially with me being a therapist and owning this org, how much I put an emphasis on protecting mental health in this community. I understand that that's not the perspective of everyone in org community, but in Villain Viver, mental health is number 1 priority, and that will always take priority, which is why we have the mental health check-in people, which is why if you get a certain role, you have access to a bunch of mental health resources, things like that. And and I promise I'll shut up soon, but like you mentioned earlier, people don't talk about the effect that these games have on mental health because they try to write it off as, oh, it's just a game, it shouldn't affect you mentally. But this is a game of social dynamics where you're being lied to all the time, and it can really fuck with your perception of reality to an extent. And I mean, I just don't even know where I'm going with this. To bring it on a broader level, we played Avatar together, and you pronounce it differently, but I assume you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Where I had a breakdown, and I very, very rarely have breakdowns. I think it's happened twice in my org career. It happened in that org, and there was no protection for mental health in that community, which led to things escalating for sure. And so it's just something that happens, and it's definitely something that's been normalized in this community, which is really sad to see. And So I don't even know what I'm asking. I guess I'm just asking you to talk about your perspective on mental health in orgs in general, if you can.
I definitely think what's it called? I definitely think mental health should be something, especially in orgs, it should be something that's protected and something that people put the work into to um, help those because you don't even have to have like a diagnosed mental illness to like suffer from like a bad episode of like depression that just randomly gets swarmed on you or like some anxiety you have over something. Like everybody struggles with mental health. It doesn't matter who you are or like where you're from. It doesn't matter anything about you. You can have a bad experience with mental health, which saying that, stating that everyone struggles with it no matter like how often or frequently, that should be like a red light and like org hosts is like heads like, oh, okay, this is something that we have to look after because orgs can get stressful, orgs can get intense, and there should definitely always be resources there to, just like how there is in real life, there should always be resources available to provide mental health services to people, and those same resources should be available in an org because they can take their toll, and I wouldn't want anyone to like I wouldn't want anyone to like ever like in the future like walk from an org um because of like mental health and they didn't really do enough to provide um help for people. And yeah, it's just something that I'm still fairly new to the org community, so I'm not really sure how well or how what's it called, how other orgs handle um their mental health services and ensuring people are um always ensuring that people have something to rely on in case they're in a bad mood or whatever it is that's going on. So it's definitely something that might be underlooked in the org community, but it never should be. And I'm glad I had like a mental health person this season, my good friend Jack, because there was like one time where I can't remember when it was in my submissions channel. And I don't know if I portrayed it in like a sense of urgency, but I was like really close to walking and I was just having a really bad time. And actually Jack wasn't available, so you helped me instead, Gabriel.
Yeah.
And like that's like that's stuff that should be in orgs because it's just like, yeah, like stuff like that can happen. Like you know, mental health is just something that I feel like always just gets overlooked, and not even just in orgs, but like in society in general. People don't put enough emphasis on something that like is very important to the human psyche and the way you go about your everyday life. So, that's definitely something that should be not overlooked for sure. So, I definitely think mental health is important in the grand scheme of things, like in this org in general. It's like you guys do a very good job of providing what's it called? Mental health services. It feels weird saying this. You guys do a very good job of providing people with
Support,
good
maybe?
mental health assistance. Yes, yeah, mental health support. Because services feels weird because that's more of like an official way to like talk about like something like that.
I
Um,
do want to point out to anyone listening, um, it's not an official training that staff goes through because I don't have the authority to do that, but I was a crisis counselor. I am, I guess, technically still. I just don't do it very often. And so I've taken kind of that curriculum, and my staff who are 18 or older, you'll only ever be paired with a mental health person who's 18 or older, for obvious reasons. But they go through a crisis counseling training during the preseason to make sure that those who are, because even though the things that people might be going through and might need to talk to won't escalate to a level of crisis, I do feel like it's just good to be prepared in any circumstance. And yeah, so I just wanted to assure everyone that we do have that service can kind of be an appropriate term because people are unofficially trained to handle these situations.
Yeah, that's definitely something that I'm glad I had during the season because during the one part where I was like very close to walking and you helped me out, and then there was also I, I don't think I said it in submissions, but there was like two times or just some DMs with Jack where I was like pretty much like saying like yeah man like I don't know how much longer I can keep doing this and like he really helped me like not walk from like I've said it before, but if it weren't for Jack and you, I would have walked from the season like without like a heartbeat. Like I wouldn't have even like thought twice, but like you know, I didn't. I'm glad I didn't because I got second. And I feel like I don't know, Villain Survivor is definitely something that whenever like I can play a second time, I would love to because I definitely want to have another chance to like actually play the way I want to and not have to go through everything I did this season. So I'm glad I stuck out through it through the help of like the support that you guys provide with mental health and all that. So yeah.
Thank you. That was all very insightful and things that need to be said. We don't have like time since the season's going to like start soon, but I definitely want to have a whole episode on mental health in orgs because it's just something that needs to be talked about. And but yeah, all of your perspective and even opening up about what you went through on the season is really important. And for those listening in the future, I do want to let you know, like, this is one of the most intense orgs I've ever seen. I don't think I could play it. I tell people all the time I could not play Villain Survivor because I know how I am and how I get mentally. And it's just too intense for me. So it's like, please like heed these warnings as well. I'm not trying to tell people to not play, but just know what you're getting into. And we do our best to support people, but we can only do so much. You know, sometimes you have to look after yourself and because you know yourself better than anyone else. And I think some people just kind of don't realize that whenever they go into not just this game, but any game. So yes, that is all of the questions that I had. Brian mentioned that he wanted to come on. I don't know if you have any more time to talk. If Brian,
Oh, I have nothing else to do tonight,
okay,
so
I can stick around for about 30 more minutes before I have to go back to work. But Brian, if you want to come on, if you had any questions that you wanted to ask.
I don't have anything to say, but just it was really fun watching you on this season, just and I'm glad you didn't walk.
thank you so much. It was in hindsight, it was probably more fun playing than like I originally like my mindset really like was during the season, but like, I mean, although my experience sucked, I'm glad I played still. Like I'm glad I played in like season 6. Um, cause yeah, no, I don't know how much better or worse I would have done if you guys had cast me for like season 5 rather than like season 6. So
Right. I forgot that you did apply for season 5. And yeah, so interesting how that ended up the way that it did. Um, it sounds like that's it. Do you have anything else that you want to share before we go to audience questions?
uh, I think I've like covered like everything. Like I talked about my game, everything that went on this season. I guess all I have to say is like if anyone ever watches this, um, don't pagong people. It's not fun. Nobody likes it. People don't like to watch it. You might think it's a good strategy, but don't. That's about it. Just please, like, anyone listening, whenever you play a Future Survivor org, just don't pagong people. It's not a fun experience, and as somebody who had to like go through it for an entire fucking season, like I really wish like just have like fluid gameplay,
That's definitely sound advice. And like I said, we need to have our survivor school with Tristian. And that will be a number one lesson. Don't pagong like 101. So now I turn it to the audience. We have a couple people listening. If you all want to come onto the stage and say your questions out loud, feel free. If you have any questions, if you don't want to say them out loud, you can type them in spectator chat and we will read them out loud to Tristian, even though I'm sure he can read himself. Yeah, so I'll just give a couple of minutes for that. Emmy wants to know, why are you so iconic?
Why am I so iconic? I think like what's it called? Why am I so iconic? That's a really good question. I think in terms of Villain Biver, me being iconic, it's probably because of everything I went through, you know? Like, people wanted to see me win. And then icon is somebody who stands out, and I think like I definitely like stood out. So yeah, no, to like get like to be considered iconic, you have to do something to stand out, or you have to be seen in like some light that like shows you as being, I don't know, maybe I guess like different from other people. And I guess like in this season, I think, you know, the reason why I'm like iconic is because I had to go through a fucking paganing, you know, and I still survived it and made it to like the final tribal council. So, yeah, no, that's definitely. That's a fucking hard question. That's probably the best answer I can give on why I'm so iconic.
I love how you like gave a thorough answer to it. Like, you're just like so fun to talk to.
I mean, if someone asks me the question, like I gotta answer it. You
know? Of course, you do. The fans are asking. As Uni said, I'm a Tristan, so
it's true.
Brian is going to read the next question out.
Who do you look up to in the old community?
Wow, you are asking someone who's played like 3 orgs total. So I don't know any like fucking like people who are considered like prestigious org players. I don't know if I've played with anyone who's like considered like really good at playing orgs, because I've only played and Villain Viver this past season. I don't know if anyone that played in this past season's like known throughout the org community for like being really good at playing orgs. I played in, I think it was like season 9 of Geo Orgs. I don't actually, there's one person in Geo Orgs who I have an idea, or I think they'd probably be someone. I don't know if you guys know who Wavy is, but I played with them in Geo Orgs, and I feel like he'd be the person who has like a good reputation or something along those lines. Because I remember I joined another org server and I saw that he won a season of theirs. So, but yeah, no, I don't necessarily have anyone to look up to because, yeah, I don't really know any org players that are like really good like that. But if there is an org player who plays the same way that I like to play, with like being under the radar and social and stuff like that, then I'd probably look up to them. I don't know any examples though, so.
Right, fair answer. Fair answer. We love honesty. Emmy also wants to know, do you prefer Survivor or Big Brother or any of the other common orgs? I think that's the question that's being asked. I
love playing in Survivor and both Big Brother. I tried playing in the Challenge org. Fuck the Challenge orgs, by the way. Only because the people who play in those orgs are really good at like every competition possible. Like I've said before, I'm not a physical player at all. So like I would get like booted out like so quickly by losing an elim because I'm just not good at challenges like that. And I like playing in both Survivor and Big Brother. I've only played in Survivor orgs. I haven't really found a Big Brother org, but from what I've heard, Big Brother orgs aren't too great of an experience, and I've heard they're like filled with a lot of toxicity and whatnot. So I'm not really sure if I want to branch out into like a Big Brother org upon hearing that like their current reputation isn't isn't a very good one.
Big Brother orgs are not one that I would recommend. I think that they're great for your play style, but just the way that they are now, I don't know. Maybe Emmy loves Big Brother orgs, so maybe they have some recommendations for good ones. But I've played in a couple and have never had a great experience. Luckily, nothing toxic, just like inactive. Excuse me. But yeah, don't blame you in that regard.
Like, I would definitely love to play like a Big Brother org, or the idea of the Amazing Race. I hate watching the Amazing Race, but playing in something Amazing Race is cool. I don't know if Amazing Race orgs are like a thing at all.
They are.
But oh, okay, well, yeah, no, those would be like two things I'd also consider. But like, it would just be those three because I love Survivor and Big Brother. Amazing Race is fun to play, and I love watching the challenge, but I can't play in the challenge orgs, man. Like, those people are just way too good. Like, I played and won the challenge org, and we had a daily mission where we had to complete a 5x5 slide puzzle and a 50-piece jigsaw, and some dude did it in like a minute and 40 seconds. So like, I can't compete with that. Like, I don't have the time on my hands to be like like that sweaty over like my fucking computer, you know? What the dog doing?
Okay, I guess I'm just gonna have to talk over him. Yeah, the people in the challenge orgs are sweaty as hell, as the gays would say. So that's, oh my gosh, yeah, I'm with you on that one. Any other questions from the audience? Give it a couple of seconds. In the meantime, while we wait to see if there are anything else, if there is anything else, I just wanted to say, Tristian, like, you know, I adore you. I love you as a person. I love you as a friend. I love you as a player. And I really appreciate that you did come to play my org. And I feel terrible that you had such an awful experience, even if it might not have been my fault. Like, it still sucks, you know. But you have become such a staple in this community, and I can't imagine Villain Viver without Tristian. So thank you for that.
No problem.
Oh,
No, it was definitely
go ahead.
like in hindsight, I'm definitely so glad I played. The only thing is like, I just wish I had like a better experience, but you know, it's just sometimes that is what it is, and you can't really do much to change it. So,
Right. It's just the way that some go, you know. Unfortunately, you can't have good experiences in all of them. You can't have good seasons. I mean, we've certainly had our share of poor seasons, unfortunately, but it sounds like half of our seasons have not been great, but that's okay. It looks like no more questions from the audience, so I do have one final one of my own. It's very easy depending on who you ask, but please let the listeners know out there, how is your name pronounced and how is it spelled? Because people cannot seem to get this one understood.
oh gosh, well, it's something I have to correct people on a daily level. It is spelled Tris, obviously, Tian, and it is pronounced Tristian. I hate getting called Tristan. So anyone listening to this in the future, please don't call me Tristan. It annoys the shit out of me. And I try my best to correct people, but it's also gotten to the point where like sometimes I hear someone say Tristan and it's like whatever at this point. But it is pronounced Tristian. So for people, you know, in the future, that is how you pronounce it. It is like Tris, and then it's basically like Christian, but just put a Tris at the front. So instead of Christian, it's Tristian. So
All right. Thank you so much for finally clearing that up for people, because I know that that was a struggle for both watchers and players the entire season.
oh, I imagine.
I mean, I'm guilty of it as well. So until someone finally corrected me, and yeah, just everyone listen out. But I think that is all that we have today. Unless anyone, Brian or Tristian, wants to add anything else.
Overall, my experience might have sucked, but I'm glad I played. And I'll just be a part of this community until the opportunity arises me to play again whenever that presents itself.
Well, we look forward to that. I mean, All Stars is season 11, so you only have a couple more. You have plenty of time for your hiatus, is what I'm trying to get at.
Okay, my hiatus will definitely be done by the time that kicks around. So, and if it does extend that far, I'll make sure to end it to play in season 11.
Wonderful, because we have already started planning that season, believe it or not, and it is going to be a really, really good cutthroat season, but in a good way.
I'm excited.
But Brian?
I'm excited.
Yeah, me too, for sure. I'm excited for any returning season because I just love our community and this little network of people that we've created. So
you're excited for fans versus favorites, is what you're saying?
Yes, I am. I am very excited for fans versus favorites, especially since I know who's probably going to be on the cast. But those are secrets that I will keep to myself and the host chat, which Tristian has considered. Maybe that is an option of the org community to go into. Not saying anything, but maybe, hopefully, if we're lucky, we can see Tristian as a god of something soon.
I would love to.
You know where the application is, so we will be patiently awaiting that. And with that is all that we have. I know that I mentioned it earlier, but I do just want to say real quick, applications for season 7, Fans versus Favorites, which is Hercules themed, do close the 31st, which is in just a couple of days as of recording this. And hopefully I'll have this up tonight too, so same time. But you will get a chance to play with some of the greats from some of the legends, aside from Tristian, of course, of this org, and so make sure that you get those last minute apps in. We look forward to it. We look forward to a fantastic season. And once again, thank you so much, Tristian, for your time. Yeah, that's all we got for you.
No problem. I had a boring ass day so far. The start of my day was fine. I had a boring ass shift though, so this definitely helped my day be less of a drag.
Okay. I honestly, me too. So I'm glad that we both kind of got something out of this. Sounds like we needed it.
Oh, for sure. I literally had to sit on my phone for like 4 hours and 45 minutes working an event that has been going on for 2 months and nobody goes to. So
God, so miserable. So miserable. Sometimes real life is just too much. Can't.
that's what I'm saying.
With that, I think we're going to end it here. I hope you all have a lovely evening, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Bye.